When I started singing, I let self-criticism hold me back. It kept me from sharing my voice with the world in the best way that I possibly could. I'm going to save you some time and help you with the latest research in listening to your own voice and how we can use self-compassion instead of self-criticism. Stay tuned to the end for some tools that will help you have an even better relationship with your voice and your journey with your voice, whether you're using it for podcasting or you're a singer. I'm Serafina Zara and I talk about performance. I'm a vocalist and a vocal coach and a performance coach. I dabble a little bit in AI and talk about a lot of different things, but today we're talking about the voice and your relationship to your voice. I went to a podcasting workshop on the weekend, which was amazing fun and full of incredible individuals. I felt so lucky to meet them, and I was really surprised to hear people say, I hate the sound of my voice. What can I do about that? So there are a few things that I really related to, and there are some things that I'd like to share some tools about what we do in contemporary practice that probably wasn't around when I started singing and my journey with voice. I have one thing to share, to confess before I do this. I'm actually so much more comfortable hearing my singing voice than I am my speaking voice. So the first thing I'll share is you've just got to get used to the sound. Okay, there's a reason that we're not used to the sound of our own voice. So I'm more comfortable with the sound of my singing voice because I've done a lot of recording and I'm used to hearing it back. One of the things I do when I'm hearing back my voice is I'm not really judging it for, is this an incredible sound? Will it make people cry? Because I'm a professional and an expert in that field, I'm listening for, is this communicating the best way that I possibly can? What kind of different qualities do I need in it? Did I perform what I was hoping to perform? If I'm working with a producer, they will have some feedback about how I've approached singing, and sometimes that can really change my approach to what I'm doing. So I'm kind of more looking at it like if you play a sport and you're thinking about how you judge the distance of the ball. I'm not a sport person, I don't know how to do these things, but you're really concentrating on how you're doing something rather than sort of the outcome of it. To begin with, I didn't do that. I was really self-critical of my voice, and it held me back for a long time. It held me back because when I was hard on myself, I didn't go for opportunities because I really didn't think I was good enough. One of the things to think about is if you think you're not good enough for what? It's a really great question to ask. So let's have a look at some of the science and the practicalities of the voice. One of them is that when you hear the voice, you're actually hearing it from inside the speaker. So if you can imagine if you hopped inside your speaker, it would give you a very different sound to what you hear from the outside of a speaker. So that's the difference between what other people hear about our voice and what we hear about our voice. Add on to that too, that you're also sitting behind a whole bunch of blood, bone, mucus, the whole thing. Like there's all these kind of different sounds that give us a very different sound picture. The rest of the world is hearing us in a different way. We can actually do a lot with our voice to modulate how we sound if there are particular things that we don't like the sound of. I must admit, when I'm making these YouTube videos, I'm not really thinking about I need a beautiful sound to communicate with. I'm really thinking about, am I communicating the most effectively as I can? So it's kind of none of my business what people think of my voice. I'm not even particularly worried about it. What I'm most concerned about is, am I speaking from the heart? So it's a slightly different focus. And you might say, Serafina, that's easy for you to say as a professional voice user. But I do listen back to my spoken voice and think, wow, there's a lot going on there that I'm not particularly aware of, like particular habits and sounds. So that first part is really important, that we hear our voice differently than others do. One of the things is to get used to it. So just listening back and hearing it more often, so being exposed to it more often will help you get used to how you sound to the rest of the world. Another thing is having good microphones. Microphones make a really big difference to the quality of our sound, but how we think about our voice, and this is the same for podcasters, people who are in public speaking or vocalists, is that it's really important that we approach any kind of journey that we are on where we are learning with self-compassion. When I was starting as a singer, the way I'd grown up and the kind of self-talk I had was that you're really hard on yourself in order to get the best performance possible. And what that did is it actually slowed down my progress, and it also made it a very uncomfortable journey at a lot of times where I felt like I wasn't cut out for it because I was so hard on myself. I was much harder on myself than anybody else was. There are a few things that I'd like to introduce. One of them is some research-based information, so definitely don't take my word for it. Dr. Kristen Neff is a researcher in self-compassion, and on her website, I'll put the links below, she has some free resources around self-compassion, some meditations. I think it's really helpful for live performance or for when you're being hard on yourself. I think the thing that's most memorable to me is to go through a 3-step series to say, ouch, this hurts, like I'm feeling vulnerable, or I feel this is difficult. The second step is to say, I'm having a human experience here. Sometimes we feel very alone, but it's actually really normal to feel funny about our voice when we don't hear it, or to feel disappointed about not meeting some often imaginary expectation. And the third one is to say, may I be kind to myself in this moment. I definitely didn't grow up with any of those kind of thoughts or approaches to my singing, so I was just very hard on myself. I think I was very hard on students that I had that were in the professional space. I think I was very easy with people who weren't in that professional space, but I think, it definitely came out in lots of different ways. Based on the research and based on information that came before that, and I changed my approach to both myself and my others, which gave everybody a break. I think it makes it so much easier. Something else that I've come across recently, I really enjoy. I think it's because there's humor behind it. There is some research behind what she shares, but Mel Robbins has a book called Let Them, and I'm listening to it via audiobook. And the thing that I find really helpful is something really silly that I've just actually heard recently, and I really enjoy it, which is saying, we worry about people thinking bad things about us. When we sing, who does she think she is? Who does he think he is? Or, especially in Australian culture with the tall poppy syndrome. And that has been fed back to me, like that people have said, who does she think she is? And it's like, well, I think I'm a singer, and I actually think I'm sharing music. It kind of smarts a bit though. It's like, I'm actually sharing what I'm capable of sharing, but people can feel a bit threatened by that, and it could be a little bit odd. The thing that Mel Robbins shared was, assume that people are thinking bad things about you. Now, stay with me here for a moment. Assume that there are people thinking bad things about you. She said, are there people you love that you think bad things about? Of course there are. You think about your partner, or you think about family, or you think about friends, and sometimes you think bad things about them. Often those thoughts will pass. Sometimes you will not share those thoughts. In fact, a lot of the time you will not share those thoughts, which is a really good thing, because sometimes you find yourself really wrong, or, it was just a passing thing that they've annoyed you, or, it's not something that you would actually share in the world. So assume people are thinking some bad thoughts about you. The other thing I would add to that is, assume that some people are thinking good thoughts about you. There have been people in the audience where I've looked out when I've been singing, because I really try and watch what's happening in the audience so that I can feed off their energy, so that I can give them something back, so that I can see if they're with me. I'm always looking at people tapping their feet. Are they moving their body? Are they responding? Are they having a drink? Is this a point in the song where they feel like it's time to go to the bar? Like, have I lost people? Have I got them with me? There have been people in the audience where I thought, oh, they're really not into this. I want to try and get to them, but they're just, I'm not going to get that person. And sometimes those people have come up to me afterwards and said, that really spoke to me, or that really touched me, or that really moved me. But I couldn't see that from the outside. I don't know this person. I don't know their baseline, and that might be a super emotional response that they've been having. But because I don't know them, I can't see any difference from that, or perhaps they don't show it on the outside. I really like the idea of assuming some people are having bad thoughts about you, and let them. How fantastic. The other side of the let them is let me. And I really like that, because let me is about let me sing, or let me do what I need to do to make this gig work, or let me do what I've practiced. Let me share what I can share with the world. I hope these things are really helpful, especially if you're putting yourself out there and singing. I used to be really critical of people, but I think we all need to celebrate when people are trying something, when they're getting out there and challenging themselves to grow. And when we're doing this, whether it's on YouTube or a podcast or as a singer, we're doing it in public. And what a wonderful experience to have. What a wonderful life experience to challenge yourself in that way. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.